A Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin was released in 2000 and is the third book in the Song of Ice and Fire fantasy series. And in this book, we follow directly after the events of A Clash of Kings, where the War of the Five Kings is nearing its conclusion as the city of King's Landing is preparing for the wedding of King Joffrey and Margaery. Up in the north, Jon Snow has joined the Wildlings and is learning more about them and the King Beyond the Wall as he tries to decide between joining the Wildlings fully or returning to his brothers at the Night's Watch. All while, across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen is going from city to city, freeing slaves and building her army. There's a lot more that goes on in this book, but I feel like you just can't really describe the plot of a Game of Thrones book so easily. There's so many interconnecting things that go on that it's just a whole bunch of different plots combined together. But man, I have been waiting to talk about this book for some time. I read this book last year and absolutely fell in love with it. And sometimes I hate being the person that goes with the crowd with some things. I mean, A Storm of Swords is usually considered by many to be the fan favorite or the best book in the series, and I have to agree. I absolutely adored this book from beginning to end. It had some of the best pacing of the series, best character work. It just brought about all the stuff I loved from A Game of Thrones and combined it with the epic scale of A Clash of Kings, and just it turned it into perfection. This book was absolutely fantastic. And again, once again, George R. R. Martin's writing style is on top form here. He just has such a command of the English language and just can make anything, and I mean anything, interesting. And what he does with many of the characters in this story is just jaw-dropping at times, shocking, but it's never to get a cheap thrill out of you. You are, at this point, pretty invested in these characters, and you see them make terrible decision after terrible decision, and you see that effect and what it leads to in their ultimate ending of all their storylines for this book, particularly with the Red Wedding and the death of Robb Stark, Catelyn Stark, and basically the entire Stark army. That stuff is shocking, but it works so well and is interweaved not just through this book, but with decisions that were made throughout the past two books. And you see all that stuff culminate together into this one moment that is definitely the standout moment of this book. It's the most shocking, and it's beautifully done. I mean, I haven't been the biggest fan of Catelyn Stark's chapters through the past two books, but here, it was some of my favorite stuff. Catelyn Stark really became such a compelling character, and in these final moments, in these final chapters, even more so, as the tension just built and built. But I will say, the Red Wedding is not the only great part in this book. The stuff with Jon Snow, yet again, is amazing. His relationship with Ygritte as it grows throughout the story, as he has to decide between where his loyalties lie and the woman he loves. And then we culminate in these two large-scale battles that are just so fun and epic to read. So much stuff happens. We get the marriage of Joffrey and Margaery and the death of Joffrey. We get the death of Tywin Lannister, the deconstruction of Tyrion Lannister's character as we get two books of build-up that is just unleashed upon us as we see Tyrion go to some really dark places and is really challenged in a very different way. And I love how the trial of Tyrion Lannister really mimics his trial by combat in the first book, and I think that's very intentionally done, and he has a harder time getting himself out of the situation. I also love how it culminates with the death of his father, Tywin Lannister, as Tywin tells him that his original wife, who he believed now to be a whore, was not. And she actually did love him. And I think that is just so well done here. And the reason why Tyrion kills him, it just works so well for this story. I absolutely loved so many things in this book. There wasn't a chapter that I disliked. I loved all the characters, and I think I've mentioned before in the previous two books that there were certain chapters that I liked more than others, but here I think every character has their chance to shine in this story, and it works so well together that by the end of it, I was so impressed. This is a book that I think is honestly pretty flawless. There's not many complaints I have with it. I think it's just a perfect fantasy book. It is definitely my favorite of the A Song of Ice and Fire series. I think it just does so many great things with its character work, its build up from the previous two books, and it works as a great conclusion to the first act of this saga because it just culminates in so many things, and once you finish reading it, you're like, I cannot wait to see where this goes next, how this story will continue, and how they will make it bigger and better. With all that said, I'm going to give A Storm of Swords a 9 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said before in my last review for A Clash of Kings, I am reading through A Dance with Dragons, and that's why I've been wanting to review all of these books. I haven't read it in a few months now, so I'm trying to finish it as quickly as I can to get through this series to move on to different books. And but anyway, guys, I want to thank you for watching this, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.